Welcome to Soul Nutrition, where we discuss the various ways of nourishing our souls. I'm your host, Reina Rose. Today's guest is former television news anchor Molly Trotter, who has dedicated her life's work to telling other people's stories and giving them a platform for their voice to be heard. After she left the news industry, she found her calling in the world of digital marketing, helping coaches and consultants through on-camera coaching, plus increasing their influence and conversions through custom strategies to show their business online, the Dream Factory team. Molly, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Reina. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you to be here. I have really enjoyed just following your content, both on Instagram and YouTube and the different places that you pop up. It's just so refreshing to hear you speak. And I'm so glad to share you with my audience today.
Well, I'm excited to dive in. So ask away. I'm an open book.
Absolutely. So we're having such a great conversation that we said, hey, we've really got to hit record soon because we've got so much great stuff going on here. We'll touch a little bit about some of what we talked about earlier, but I want you to just share your faith journey with the audience and how you transitioned from being in front of the camera and being a news anchor to helping others shine both on and off camera.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because throughout, I think, everybody's lifetime, we've always been told there's certain things not to share publicly, right? Our faith in politics. And what are we seeing right now? People doing a whole lot of both. The thing is that people want to not rock the boat. They don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable, but your job isn't to make them feel comfortable. Your job is to share your truth. So when it comes to faith, there's a lot of people where they'll kind of jump down your throat and be like, this is what you need to learn. This is what you need to know. And this is what's right. But there's ways of doing it that show grace, mercy, love, and just really the heart of God and how he wants you to share his love with other people. And so at the end of the day, my faith is completely just one of the strongest foundations that I have. And it wasn't till this year, actually, that I really started professing that on a public platform business-wise. I would always put out there personally, but even in my business, because I'm like, what if I don't get this client? What if this person doesn't want to work with me? And then I finally got to the point of, who cares? If they don't, that's great. If they do, that's great. Now I'm really refining my circle as this is who I am. This is all of me. And if you don't like it, that's okay. If you like it, great. And so people just want to be accepted by so many others. And so when I was in the news, I definitely had a muzzle, if you will, where they didn't want you to say certain things, look a certain way, put yourself out there. And it was like, they're the puppeteer and I'm the puppet. Yeah. And I saw so many times where I had to succumb to what they wanted me to be rather than who I really was, to where I had to, cut my hair a certain, wear certain makeup, clothing was too tight or too loose. And I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. And then when I got into the news, the whole point was to give the underdog a voice, to be able to tell their story. When we turn on the news, it's depressing, and I didn't want to be the face of that anymore. So when I transitioned into the digital world and really being able to help coaches and consultants share their purpose, their passion, their voice on how they want to serve others, it's really the same that I've always wanted all along. It's just in a different capacity, but in a positive capacity, because there's so many limitations people put on themselves. And one of my favorite quotes that I got from a good friend of mine is, I fight for people's possibilities while they fight for their limitations. So many people fight for their limitations and, I can't do this, I can't do that. Let's wait. When God calls us to play such a bigger game. And, the verse where much is given, much is required, that constantly plays over in my head, where he's putting me in such big situations to show hey, there's a woman out there. There's actually women, you included, that share their faith publicly, that put that out there, and we're not ashamed and we're not scared to do it. And I love that, because right now more than ever, there is a huge divide going on. And I want to know who's going to be in my circle and who's going to be able to be receptive, because I'm all about having different points and perspectives and opinions, as long as you respect other people's opinions and perspectives. But people are having a hard time doing that. So God's showing me a lot of grace and mercy to be able to come along those people and show them what's different, because there is a light inside of you and I that shines differently, and people are attracted to that. Kind of like you mentioned, like a fly to a light, it's just, a bug to a light. It wants to go because it's attracted to it. People are attracted to the light inside of us because that's what God's instilled in us. So that's a little bit of that story, and I'll send it back to you because I could keep going.
Absolutely. I love what you're saying. I mean, I think about my own journey of becoming Reina Rose, because my audience knows I did change my name at one point, and I found that like as Melissa, I played small and I didn't want to speak up and I didn't want to make waves. And it was especially in regards to a certain job. And as I was singing as Reina and I was writing as Reina, and I said, you know what, Melissa played small. She didn't stand up because she was afraid she'd lose her job. But if I can't stand up in the face of losing a job, how will I ever, stand up for justice in the face of nations or whatever God calls me to in the future? And so even honestly with this show, I found a lot of the network, I'm like the opposite of an echo chamber, right? And I brought on guests that I thought, all right, I'm going to lose my show this time. But I find, it's important for us not to necessarily change anyone's mind if we're in, a very opposite of our own beliefs, but that we ask new questions, especially people of faith. You have people who are like, if you're this, political party or that political party, you're not a Christian, if you're, believe that or that and so instead of pointing a finger, asking a new question, well, what about this? Could I be loving to this kind of person? Could I love my enemies and pray for them? How would that work? And so just to ask the new questions, for me, sometimes it's worth rocking the boat if you have to, like you said, bringing on the tough guest that's like, the network's not going to like this, but thankfully I have a really good network where, I have a good amount of influence, but I think it's really important to stand up. And that's what you've done, is you went from a place where you couldn't speak your truth. You were expected to be kind of a puppet. And now you're able to speak your truth, get out there and say what you want to say because you're in control of it.
Absolutely. And it's so freeing when you do that, because at the end of the day, when people are like, okay, you were on the news, that's big. That's like a dream for some people. What they don't know is I was broke. I had to open up 3 credit cards. I had to go to bed by 7 to be up by 2. They pretty much controlled all aspects of my life, and they did not care if I had any quality of life. They didn't care about me. They just wanted to pump stories out of me and overwork me for very little pay. But what's so amazing is that the ability of social media right now, with lives on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, so many different social platforms, you can make a really great and strong impact if you do it the right way and you utilize, building your own brand and putting that value out there. Because a lot of people are utilizing social media as like, okay, build your business. And that's great. Don't get me wrong. You want to do that, but you got to give value first, because people are out there scrolling, looking to dive into other people's lives because they're wanting to take a break from their own. Are you going to bring them down with the content that you have? Or are you going to empower them and lift them up? And I just saw the vision of, okay, this is a way bigger platform and there's way more things at stake here, rather than jumping on the news and talking about a 6-car pileup that happened that day and people dying and having that be a normality. I didn't want that anymore. And so utilizing it the right way, social media can be so powerful to build the brand that you want and the influence and following, so people can see the real you and the value that you have to give.
Absolutely. And, I love that you brought up the news in general. One of the things that I've read and I've heard, being blessed to live all around the world, is that when people from other countries come to America, one of the things they're most shocked with is that every time you turn on the news, there's something catastrophic going on. Like the world is always ending on American news, which, isn't necessarily true in other countries. And so people will come to America and be like, oh, what's going on? Like they're constantly fearing that something catastrophic is going on, because that's just the way we've curated the news as, at networks in general, that's the ratings, that they're getting ratings from that. So us as viewers, if we're tuning into those kind of things, are contributing to that. And so because that's the kind of things that's getting ratings, it's like we like, as a culture, I don't, but going to horror movies or,
I hate scary movies.
I can't even like action movies. I can do action movies sometimes, but when they're like too much shooting and stuff, I'm like, I can't. But, this is the kind of stuff that sells movies, it sells news, and so there's this constant, there's a catastrophe going on and you need to know about it, right?
Yes, it's horrible. It's like the whole premise of the news is to instill fear in people and have them come back because they need more. They need to have that, like, especially during this whole pandemic, so many people so fearful. And I'll be honest, at the very beginning, I said, Lord, if it's my time and I need to go, I made peace with that. And people are like, you are crazy. And I'm like, no, that's how much I know. Like, okay, I know that God has a lot more work for me to do here, but if that was it, then that's it. Because I'm living my life to the fullest every single day and doing everything that I can, but most people aren't. So they're scared of like, oh, it can't be done yet. So I've actually seen a lot of people in this season. Okay, I've been in corporate for 10, 15, 20 years. I'm tired of that. I have so much knowledge. I want to be able to give it to people and leave a bigger legacy. And I love that because I'm a firm believer our story is meant to be mentorship to somebody else if you choose to put it out there as such. When you keep it for yourself, nobody can learn from your mistakes or what you've gone through. And some of my biggest pain points has set people free in so many different capacities. And it's vulnerable, but that's what people want. They want that vulnerability, that connection. If you think about it, when you watch the news, they always want to get somebody crying or mad or somebody crazy. Why? Because it's invoking emotion in everyone. Because as humans, we crave that. So it's just, let's do it in a more positive light rather than being, just fear and angry and anxiety. That's why so many people are on medications right now, because they're just so anxious and they don't know how to deal with it. When really at the end of the day, let's jump in the word. Like, this is the biggest medication that any of us can have is prayer, meditation, and really being able to worship God. And so that's what my prayer and hope for the world is that right there.
Absolutely. And, I think it's so important, like you said, that we are called to edify one another. We're called to, the Bible says older women help bring up the younger women and mentor them and share your stories. And that's what we need to do. That's what we're called to do. And so if we're doing anything less than that, we're really doing less than what we are called to do, even biblically as like a minimum standard, truly.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, the Proverbs 31 woman. You got to really be able to, it's that wise woman that knows when to speak, how to pour into others. And I've constantly, the last several years, just revolved my life around what does it look like to refine myself as that woman? Because today's woman is strong, CEO, dominant, or very submissive, doesn't have a lot to say, is on the back burner. And there's not a lot of women that are in between. And that's my mission, is like, where are those women that are in between that can really take that stand, that have that power and grace, but she's not overwhelming. And so I love that. And there's a lot of women out there with a lot of wisdom that maybe you just don't know if what they have is valuable enough to share with the younger generations. When I would say, if you're listening to this and that's you, start sharing. Doesn't matter how you do it, what it looks like, what it sounds like, just start, because then you have somewhere you can refine from rather than always shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Absolutely. And I love, actually, my next question was about your passion for entrepreneurship. So speaking of the Proverbs 31 woman, those of us who I've read that verse, for a year straight before, just really honing it in, but she is entrepreneurial. She is out there, planting a vineyard with her own hands. She's selling goods with the merchant ships. She's out there weaving flax. She's constantly doing business of some sort. And so, I think sometimes people think of a biblical woman as someone who just sits home and makes food for the household, but that's not necessarily true. Actually, we look at this Proverbs 31 woman, the example of the kind of woman to be. And she's out there creating commerce for her family.
That's so good. And I may rock the boat a little bit with this one, but I've grown up in the church my entire life. But I do believe the church is a part of the problem in this, and that the way they tell women what they need to do, be quiet, serve, be on the back burner. It's like, there's a lot of churches that have kind of broken out of that, but there's still a lot that are in that stage. And women are like, okay, well, I don't really know what to do. And there's even a lot of, faith Christian believing people that are broke because they're like, I don't want to have too much money because money's evil. It's the root of all evil.
Right.
God did not call us to be broken. You're exactly right. When you look at Proverbs 31, she's constantly taking her investments and learning how to grow them. She's constantly being just choosy on where she puts her time, her words, her energy. And that's one thing that I see in a lot of women is if you see a woman that really likes to talk, that's just blah, 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 wanting to be the center of attention, you can tell that there's insecurities there and she just wants that attention rather than the woman. It's like, I'm going to wait until it's worth to speak up. Like it's worth it. And my words have weight. And so the investment piece and then the weighted words part in Proverbs 31 are so ingrained in my brain because I used to be that person that would just talk, talk, talk. until I had a mentor being like, you talk too much. You need to be quiet. And I'm like, what? And I got really offended. And then I was like, wait a second. He has a point. Like, I do talk too much, and it is nervous talking because I need to sit back and let God, okay, how do you want to utilize me and what he's built in me so far? But yeah, the entrepreneurship, back to your question of, Proverbs 31 and my just love for that is, I thought I was always going to be a news anchor and reporter, be on TV, be a news anchor here in LA, here in California where I live. But very quickly, God was like, no, I'm just refining you a little bit here. I'm going to throw you in somewhere else. And I have gone through the ups and the downs and being broke and not knowing where I was going to eat, where I was going to sleep. I don't have a car. What is this going to happen? And this was all within like the last couple.
In all those places. Oh, not in the last year, but yeah.
Not in the last year, but the last couple years, like in the last 2 to 3. And so I've just had radical change financially, mentally, spiritually, all the above, where God's just been priming me. But it was all about surrender and humble yourself, So the entrepreneur, like as a woman, you're like, okay, like we have that drive in us. A lot of us have that drive, but then it's, as an entrepreneur, how do you find that feminine factor to really be able to have that femininity to lead? Because you got these males in the marketplace that are like really dominating. Yeah. How do I get my voice to be heard? Well, our superpower is our femininity, our love, our grace, our empathy, and having that shine through.
Being an invitation.
Yes. And not having to be the center of attention all the time. It's like, look, you'll learn, but our superpower also is our intuition. So I love entrepreneurship because it gives you the freedom to really learn about yourself, learn about who you want to surround yourself with and what's important to you, rather than working for somebody else. Because for me, that wasn't the answer. I could never have a boss again, ever. I need that freedom because I'm going to learn so much. And then I'm going to be able to empower other people to say, this is how I did it. Take it or leave it, whatever value you want to pick from it. But again, my story is going to be mentorship to you in some way or the other, because you're going to find something that clicks, not because of what I say, but what God's saying through me to come right to you. That's what I firmly believe, because there's just so much growth and just amazingness when it comes to the entrepreneurship journey. If you're up for the battles, the ups and the downs, because there's a lot of it, but it's not for everyone.
Which is life, truly. And it really does test your faith in a lot of ways. I was sharing with you before the show, I've definitely been, especially when I was your age, actually through the, broke stages, I'd come up a little bit and then be right back down, and I really do feel that I always say, I think everybody should be broke at least one point in life. So when you do get to the stage where you're giving a lot more, there's just so much more grace in it because you've been the one who's received. And, I thought I was done with that phase. And I'm like, oh yeah, just giving them the charities when they need it, and then God's like, all right, I'm bringing you to a new phase. And that phase is going to be a little bit more receiving that kind of, not charity, but for the mission that I'm sending you on. And I'm like, but I don't want to, I like being in charge. I like, but we have to be on that journey of faith and, entrepreneurship. You've really brought your faith into your story of entrepreneurship. Tell us a little bit of what that looks like and how you are sharing with other women how to bring your faith into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So I've done it a couple different ways. First and foremost, it's just being, I love to post out on social media, just value driven. Like, it's just value driven. Here's what I've learned from the day, the takeaway from my mentor, podcast, whatever. And here's this value that I have come to be able to give to you. So then you can go do something with it. That's my investment of the day to you. And you can go sow that seed however you want. And it's just being bold with that, because there's going to be people that might give you backlash. There's going to be people that support you. Either way, it's not your job to protect their feelings and their emotions. God's going to do what he's going to do inside of them. You're just facilitating that content. So there's that boldness right there. Yeah. Secondly, my husband and I, every Monday on my Facebook page, for now until we grow, we have this segment called The God-Given Couple, from when we were dating, engaged, and now married, of just showing people the honest and the realness of a relationship, the ups and the downs that we've been through, and showing people, hey, look, we've gone through the thick of it, and we're also, on this side of it. And people are like, oh, I will never have what you have. I'm like, well, you absolutely can if you're patient enough, because you haven't seen the heartbreak, the abuse and things that I've had to go through on the back end to get somebody like a Jonathan, to have somebody like that. That's amazing. That I get to spend the rest of my life with, my best friend. I had to go through a lot, and so did he. But some people are so impatient, or they're staying stuck because they don't want to be alone. That is just trying to break them free of that bondage, that it's okay. Know your worth and know that you're expensive enough to walk away when something's not aligned. Because if something inside of you is not aligned, like
Mhm.
you need to back up and reassess.
Going back to, we talked about the church and, we're seeing this mass exodus from the church right now. And I was talking to you a little bit about the show about a community platform I'd like to create for people who are really seeking to go deeper with God, but maybe they're not finding that. There's a lot of great churches out there that really do provide that. Then there's a lot of people who want that part of Christianity, but they're not really finding the deep heart of God in where they are, and maybe they're not meeting the other people like that. So how are you incorporating that in your relationship, in your faith, and seeing where, okay, we need to be speaking about these things. We need to be a place where people can come speak truth in love, even if it's uncomfortable, speak about the things that, you were sharing with me on the show, some of the challenges that some of the challenges that you have shared on your Monday shows with the way your husband started out relationships and the way you did. These are kind of things that a lot of Christians will just cover up and say, well, I'm married now, I'm good, right? They don't. And then that leads to a lot of guilt and shame within the rest of the church. Sometimes they'll even look down their noses as if they weren't doing that before. So share with us how you're able to be that vulnerable, how you're able to share these things and not feel that Christian, I'm so perfect and I need to pretend that I never sinned or made a mistake. That's so refreshing. And how'd you get there?
Great question. So it just, after a while, I think that being in the news gave me that push of being out there and just, here I am. And then people start picking you apart. Like, I got emails and emails of, you shouldn't wear this, or why are you wearing that, or why are you talking like this? And I'm like, who are you? Like, this is crazy. And so when you really understand that the only opinion that matters is God's opinion and how he views you as a daughter, as a son of the king, like that is all that matters. That, okay, this person's having a bad day. I'm not sure where you're at. I'm going to pray for you. Like, you just got to start blocking out that noise. So some of the instances that you're referring to, Jonathan and I, we've dated before, and very vulnerably, I'll admit it, I didn't wait to have sex before I got married. He did. I'm 30, he's 26. And I decided, even before we started dating, I just had this, God, throw my hands up in the air, turn the switch off. Like, I do not want to do this anymore. I'm sorry. I repented. Like, I wish I waited. And then lo and behold, the next man I dated, let alone married, was a virgin. It was the craziest revelation. Like, you're 26, good looking man, how did you wait? And so it's like, he knew that there was something more special on the other end. And for me to be able to have that as his wife was like the best gift of all. Not very many people are going to experience that. And I'm fine openly talking about it because a lot of us fall in this trap. Yeah. He's not going to want to be with me if I don't sleep with them. She's going to think I'm weird if I don't want to go there. Well, guess what? Who's telling you that? Society, because we're just seeing things over and over, sexualizing in Netflix series and movies and billboards, you name it, to where it's just, we're so programmed that it's something crazy. You see, in a matter of a day, it's over 60 sexualized images through social media, other places on a daily basis. And not only are we seeing that, our kids are seeing that. So it's for me, I'm like, okay, I know that I haven't had a perfect past, and I'm fine talking about it openly now. And I actually waited to talk about it until after we got married to be like, hey, look, we waited. We were dating and married in under about 11 months. But we waited that entire time. Why? Because we knew God had something so much more special planned and what he designed sex and marriage and everything for. And we wanted to really take that seriously because that's a really big promise. But so many people are just throwing up marriage and with this person and that person. I've had this many partners, like it's some trophy. It's not a trophy. It's a gift that God has given us. So we talk about that openly to set people free, because I know a lot of women that probably would love to wait, but they got pressured into it. And now they're like, okay, in order for me to keep him, I got to do this. No, he's not for you if he wants to pressure you into the wrong things.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. You had mentioned too, knowing that you're expensive, knowing that you're valuable. And I think that's something that, again, not every church, but a lot of churches, we're finding people that kind of take this false humility. I remember the first time I met this girl I call my prayer warrior princess. She's the first person I call for prayer. And I like to take communion often with friends, every time you meet, right? Almost. And sometimes I do it alone too. But I take it in this way that is receiving Christ his body and his characteristics, like, Lord, I receive your humility, I receive your love, I receive, you know, everything that Christ is that I need to be, like that's a physical representative of me doing that. And then when we take the cup, you know, I'm like, this is your blood becoming my blood, making me a bloodline of the King of Kings, you know, worthy of all things because of you, Jesus, you know, not in my own right, you know, not as a, I'm so great, but you've made me great, you know. And she said that when we started taking communion in this way, she said she used to take communion groveling like a worm, like, oh Lord, I'm so unworthy, I can't come before you. And she goes, when we started doing it in this way and saying these words, I really felt like a queen in Christ, that I was made his bloodline and that I was worthy, you know, of many things. And, you know, I think this unworthiness feeling, it's a feeling, you know, there's so much research now on people not feeling worthy. And but especially in the church, when we know we are co-heirs with Christ, to not feel worthy of someone waiting for you to have sex, you know, or not feel worthy of a person when you are God's beloved. I think that you really touched on something really important there, is knowing our worthiness, male, female, that if you're in Christ, he's made you an heir with him. I mean, you are royalty of heavens.
Yeah, and there's so many women and even men that don't feel that. You know, even we can talk about women all day long not feeling worthy, and most of us will be like, yeah, we know some women like that. But let's talk about men for a second, because men are so like, you got to be tough, you got to be strong. And this, like, the strongest man in the room is the one that can show his emotions and he doesn't care what people think. But men just feel like they have to be so bottled up. And then there's all these like men that are, you got to be strong, you got to do this, you got to do that. So they're just like robots, and they're so stonewall, so they can just do whatever they want with women. They don't feel a thing because they haven't connected in with that emotion. And so I've seen a lot more men, the people I surround myself with, of like, hey, plug into those places, let your guard down, like talk about real things, because you guys need healing too. But we just expect them to be strong and have all the answers when they're humans too, and they're just learning like we are. So men have a lot of pressure, and then they need to have that outlet where they can share that emotion freely and not be judged. You know what I mean?
And a lot of times I had a friend that, you know, it was coming out as anger all the time. And the therapist told him, like, what is the real emotion coming up? Because the thing is, we're taught, you know, that men aren't allowed to show sadness, and they're not allowed to show being afraid, or all these other emotions that sometimes, because they don't know how to identify and express a variety of emotions, it comes out as anger every time, like, wow, I'm just going to be the strongest bear in the room. And then, you know, that's how I win in this culture, you know, and instead of like, actually, that really scares me to do this thing. That's why I logically don't think this is going to work. But instead it's like, that's a bad idea, you know. Like it manifests in just like one, the only emotions guys are allowed to have is like happy or angry, right?
Yes. Well, it's that, you know, anger can, like you said, cover up fear, anxiety, you know, stress. And so it comes out as that. And I remember, like, I mean, I'll talk about it. I've had this kind of, for a long time, I since retired it, thank God. But like this alpha woman mentality of like super strong, I'm going to be better than you. No guy has anything on me, like that, like this chip on my shoulder, like I was some, you know, hot piece, whatever. And I'm just like, where did that even come from? It came from, okay, I don't want these men to walk all over me. I know my worth, and I'm going to show it like this, so I can just push you guys aside, like, go away. This is my territory. But at the end of the day, I only did that because I'm like, okay, I got to show my worth. I got to make sure they know that I'm here to play in the big leagues and the big games. Well, you can do that and still be feminine and soft, because when I was acting like that, I was the furthest away from ever finding my husband. I'll tell you that, because no man wants to love a woman like that. Like, she's already like the male and the female.
The men, right? You know, and I think especially as a businesswoman, you know, we're coming in this man's game, and if we try to out manly the men, that we're just never going to do that. We're going to, even the men who, they're not going to respect that. But when we can come in and show our intelligence and show that we know our stuff, and really come in and show our expertise as an invitation, which is, you know, the masculine is that penetrating the world, we're going to go out and bulldoze everything, right? If we try to play that game, we're going to lose, because that's not our game. That'd be like a ballerina trying to win a sumo match, right? And so when we get into what we're good at, and we can, you know, show our expertise, show that we know what's going on, show like we have these incredible ideas and we think outside of the box, and use that as an invitation to if you'd like to take all these successful ideas and work with me, come on over, right? Instead of, I'm going to make you listen to my ideas, and, and it just gets us nowhere. I mean, it can get us a certain amount, but at the end of the day, not where we want to be.
And any woman, I feel like if they dig deep down, they know that's not what they're designed for, and there's not full alignment there. You're like, I don't want to be like that, but people aren't telling you no, and it's getting you some results. You're like, okay, we'll figure it out. But it's just so, it's so crazy. And so that's where it's like when Johnny and I come on that live, we're just like, okay, here's the male aspect, here's the female aspect, take what you want, but this is a live relationship in the flesh, and you've watched it from dating to engaged into marriage, and there's plenty more to come because people need that freedom and healing, and not very many people, especially as Christian or not, people just don't want to be open about their relationships. There was like, oh, keep that on the back burner, keep that silent. It's like so many people have kept it silent that we don't even know what's right or wrong anymore, and we keep doing the wrong things and keep getting into the wrong traps, and then we're wondering what happened. Well, it's because there's nobody like really leading and like showing, hey, this is an option too.
Yeah. I think having those examples, and that's what you're being to the world, is the example that you didn't have. You came out and like, okay, if I want to play this man's game, I got to be more manly than the men. So I'm going to be this alpha female. I'm going to be more alpha than you are. Right. And so you didn't have a woman example there to show you, actually, I can be really in charge here by being feminine, by resting in who I am. And they can see through that false alpha anyway, and it's actually getting you further behind because you think you're manipulating them, but it can be the other way around, right? When we're in that kind of, we're going to be so, I've definitely been there too. So I can only speak from experience on that one, and I really, it's funny because I was in the same position as you. I don't want to let men walk all over me, and they've done this to women for centuries, so I'm going to be in charge this time. But I really saw where I was trying so hard to be in charge, and whether they did anything or not, I was actually always putting myself in a worse position.
That's powerful.
I thought I was putting myself in a better position. So I wanted to talk a little bit about faith in your business, why that's so important, and the impact that you've seen on your life and the lives of those around you as you've brought your faith really to the forefront. And I love that the way that you're doing, you're bringing your faith forward is not in this, you have to believe what I believe kind of way. It's a very, it's that feminine invitation. It's an invitation into this very illuminated, like lighting up your life kind of way. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that this has really been a huge benefit. One, it's attracted me to a lot of other entrepreneurs and business owners that are of faith. So now you have that same foundation, which really does matter, because in business it can be very gray, scammy, schemy, kind of gross, and that's where people are like, ugh, I don't want to jump into that world. But I've actually connected with so many amazing, just faith-driven entrepreneurs, which I love. So that's huge, because now we know our impact has that, like, it's bigger than me attitude, mentality, drive behind it. Also, I just became but I'm a part of this movement where it's called Girl Power Alliance, that's connecting faith and business and women together to have that place to grow, to be able to be nurtured, to pour into other women and also be poured into, because networking out there, you either get faith or business, but you never find the combination of both. And so God really laid it on my heart to create that. But my friend Michelle actually beat me to it. And when she told me what she created, my mind just exploded. I'm like, no way. I have the same vision.
Yeah.
Because women just don't, the church has taught us certain things. Your surroundings have taught you certain things of like, okay, don't make too much money or don't connect this and that. And it's like, what are all these like complications for? This is who I am. Take it or leave it. And if you don't like it, that's fine. I'm not here to please everybody. But so many people are stuck in the people-pleasing mode because they don't want to rock the boat, where my friends and family definitely know me that I'll get on that boat and I'll tip it over. I'll rock it, and like, I won't be in your face about it, but I'm like, this is what it is. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But at the end of the day, this is how I choose to do life. And you're going to notice I do life in a different way. And my joy and all the just how I choose to live life and the freedom that I have is so much deeper than the money I make. It's spiritual, and it's the people I surround myself with. And that's where the company that I'm with now, called the Dream Factory, like about 90% of our company are believers. And that makes a huge difference when you're working with people that also have that foundation.
Yeah.
You know, my husband's in it. My brother-in-law is the CEO. And like, we pray together, we do life together. And it makes a huge difference because so many people are stuck in environments most of the day that they hate being in. That's actually just withdrawing rather than depositing into them. So faith in business is like, it's not even like a question now. It needs to be a must. Because if you're going to be so quiet about something that is substantial in your life, because most people I meet, they're like, oh no, faith is a big part of my life, but they want to be quiet about it because they don't want to rock the boat. Again, you're going to win people and you're going to lose people. My family, for example, hates what I do on social media. They hate how open I am. Like, and when I say hate, I don't say that very often, but like they do not like it. They have friended me, unfriended me, have, you know, gotten on me for certain things because it makes them uncomfortable with how open I am. But I know I'm poking at something that's there. God's doing the rest. And I'm open because I see the bigger ripple effect of faith or how I choose to share my life and my wins or even the downs, because people don't want to see you winning all the time. If you're going to be a multimillionaire, have a bunch of people follow you, you better show them the journey along the way, because now you're giving them the roadmap as to the ups and downs you went through and what they can be on the lookout for, because it's going to be different for everyone. However, don't give them this false sense of it's going to be perfect. And faith, you know, at the end of the day, it's with this whole pandemic, I'll sum it up with this. Without faith, I don't know where I would be. I mean, it's just like you need to have faith and know, okay, God's doing something so much bigger, especially me living in California. California is like, most people have written it off. It's a lost cause. It should fall off in the ocean, whatever. There's a huge revival going on here. People congregating on the beach, people getting baptized in the ocean every Friday, people going to the steps in the state capitol in Sacramento and just flooding the steps with worship. Like, there's a lot of really positive things here. But what does the news show you? Death, destruction, wildfires, more deaths for coronavirus, whatever they want to show you to get you to be fearful that I don't want to leave these four walls. That's exactly where Satan wants you, is to stay put.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was just thinking, how many action and horror flicks do we see versus like a love drama that actually worked out and everything? You know, like we only see that on Hallmark Channel on the small screen, you know, because what sells is the sensationalized, this is the catastrophic thing that's going on, where it truly is, we're having revival go on all over the place. And this is what I love the way that you're sharing faith. You know, there's this way that I believe has really caused this, like I said, mass exodus from the church, where it's like, honestly, when I got divorced like 15 years ago, and I, you know, so young, first of all, I think 14 anyway. So I like ran away from the church because I just felt, you know, like I can't be accepted anymore. I did something bad. So then as I started coming back to faith and really wanting to see faith a different way, you know, at first, honestly, I couldn't even say Jesus, because Jesus had just been used as such a cliche that I'm like, you know, Jesus loves you. What would Jesus do? Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And I'm like, I had to say Christ for the longest time, because, you know, as I went, now I can say it, but like, you know, the kind of religion, you know, and maybe not even faith, I would say, the kind of religion that's out there kind of beating people over the head, that's just saying, you know, you have a truly, you know, heartbreaking event, and it's like, well, Jesus has a plan for you, you know, when the Bible calls us to like mourn with those who mourn, right, and be authentic. And you know, even women, you know, not just men, as far as our emotions are concerned, we're taught, like, you know, someone had a loved one die, and they're like, you know, I'm doing really good until someone says his name, and then I cried. I'm like, it's not really good to not mourn for your loved one. Like, you need to let that out. It's biblical. In fact, you know, the Jews would bring people around to wail and mourn with you so you could let out the emotion. And we're taught to, you know, keep a perfect face and not have our emotions, and, you know, unless they're happy and perfect.
Yes.
And so if that's the church, where if you're not happy and perfect and your life is, you know, free of all complication, then you don't really belong here. But that's obviously that nobody's life is like that, right? But that's the image we're portraying. No wonder we're seeing this mass exodus, because we're not seeing an authentic pouring out of, you know, we're broken people congregating together in Christ because he's the one who heals our brokenness. And that's the only way we can get unbroken.
That's so good. Oh my gosh. That is, I mean, you said it perfectly. That's exactly what's happening. And it's like, look, like I have plenty of faults. Like, it's not a religion. Like, sure, I grew up Christian my entire life, and I've stuck with that my entire life. And I have my own personal relationship with God. That's what it is people want to go to church Sunday, repent, get a little word, and then be on, like, you know, be on and just do whatever you want the rest of the week. I remember like Saturdays, like I would just go out and do my own thing and get kind of crazy and be like, that's okay, I got church tomorrow. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like how far was I? But that's a lot of people because they don't have that personal relationship. And not even till maybe like this, like last year, 2 years, something like that, like really diving into my adulthood, being like, what does my relationship with Christ look like? Like where's the depth? Where's the root? Because if it's just surface level, it's going to blow away in the wind when any kind of trouble comes. And I feel like that's why people aren't bold in their faith and share it, because they got that blow away and in the wind kind of faith. They don't have a root system of like a tree that's been here for 20 years type of faith where it's really deep. So it doesn't matter if the wind's coming or not. You know, you're going to be there and you're going to stand firm. And that's what God's word is. That's the soil, that's the nurturing, it's the water, the nutrients that you need. And so many people are like, oh, I just like the Bible's confusing, I can't read it. Well, I actually really love reading the Message version. If anybody has trouble reading the Bible, it's a little bit more in today's language. And I've heard, well, it's not the perfect translation. It really is. But at the end of the day, it's like, if this speaks to you, God's really going to speak to you what he wants to say, no matter what version you're reading, because he knows your heart's pure. And that stopped me for a lot of years. But at the end of the day, now I have that, and I bounce back and forth between two Bibles to really be able to, okay, this is this version. Lord, what do you want me to get out of this? Because it's my personal relationship with him. It's just like in a marriage. Like, you're married to somebody else, getting to know them, doing life with them, make that commitment to them. That's you and God. You were married to God essentially as soon as you were born, you know, and develop that relationship and build that root, because your marriage isn't going to last if you don't want to pursue the other person. God is selfish where he wants you to pursue him. And so many people don't. That's why they can't share their faith publicly, because they're like, what if somebody says something and I don't know the answer, which has happened to me sometimes. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go figure that out. I'm not perfect. I need to go research that. Thank you so much for that. And just admit that, look, I need to learn still. This is a big book and there's a lot of lessons.
You know, God reveals his mysteries to us in his time. And that, you know, I think, honestly, that's, I think, one of the biggest shortcomings in the church today is needing to have an answer for every question. And when we see, like, biblically, I remember once my spiritual director telling me, you know, the Bible is just as mysterious as Christ himself, you know, and the disciples didn't even know what he was talking about till far after, you know, they didn't get it. He revealed his mysteries in his time. And so if we don't have an answer, that doesn't mean you're not a good Christian or you're not pursuing God. But I think, you know, the heart of it is really having, like you said, true relationship. And it's hard because we don't see a whole lot of examples of that. That's where we see, like, kind of, I think the narrow path isn't necessarily like who will go to heaven. I think it's who will experience heaven on earth with God as we're really walking out our faith. That's going to be narrow. There's not a lot of examples of people who are truly looking to have a deep relationship with God and not just like show up on church on Sundays. Maybe you're not even, you know, have partying on Saturday, but you're living a really good life and you're a really good person and you go to church. So, you know, like, but it's almost, I'm curious about God instead of I'm absolutely so in love with the Lord. And if you don't see what that looks like around you, sometimes it's hard to know. Like, a lot of people who are been Christians their whole life, I've heard them say, what do you mean by that?
Ooh, that's good. And it's sad at the same time. It's good that you asked that question, but then it's just like, whoa, like you're just kind of, they're just going through kind of like the way I like to put it is like a walking zombie, right? Like, you're still living and breathing, like walking the earth, but you're not really living. Like, you're just day in, day out, this and that. And I even find myself throughout like the work day, I'm like, okay, look, if you get frustrated or you have a time or a break, you don't know really what to do next because of whatever. Like, I have a Bible on my desk at all times, be like, okay, I'm going to jump in the word and whatever stands out to me, rather than go on social media and try to find answers that I won't find.
Yeah.
It's like, get into something that's good and really be able to take that time to either praise God. What does he have to share? Where do I need to go next? Because we're so programmed to listen to the world. And that's why the world is so noisy, because it wants to distract you. But yeah, people just they don't have that intimate connection. And it's like, And that's the most important part. It's like, you got to have the intimate connection, because it's like, your marriage, your relationships, significant others, your best friend, you got to have that deeper connection. And if you're going to spend time with them, you should be tithing, just like you're tithing your finances, tithing your time to the Lord as well.
Absolutely. And that's, that's something for two things there that I just, every time you're saying something, I'm like, I want to catch everything that you just said. I think about C.S. Lewis talks about, this isn't a new problem in our church. C.S. Lewis is talking about this in the, beginning of the 20th century, but that some people, very few people even have one true intimate friend. And then, so if you don't even have one true intimate friend, it's a very difficult leap to make that God would be your best friend and that he would like intimately connect with you. And yeah, you may be finding yourself wondering, what does that look like? Or people who, had a strained relationship with their father. Well, you're telling me God's a loving father? I don't understand. And so, really, there's actually a really good book I'm reading right now. I think it's called Guide to Inner Healing Prayer by Rusty Rustenbacher. I'm gonna try and get him on the show. But, it really gets into some of those deep lies from the enemy we believed early on, that like, I can't connect deeply with someone. I can't share my most intimate, painful experiences because that will get me shamed. That will get me whatever it might be. We're called to confess our sins to one another, but, we're taught early on, actually, you're going to be hurt if you do that. So just don't talk about all the perfect things, but not all. And then I want to mention tithing too. Tithing to me, I think of God as like our heavenly investor. We were just talking about business and having God involved in that. If we have an investor come in and, invest in our lives and make our business grow, and then we don't pay them out their 10% that they asked for as the investment,
yeah, they're going to be like, hey,
Right. I mean, you wouldn't do that to a human. So why would you do that to the God who is, bringing you the divine connections, the God who's making you breathe each day? And so to think, we need to really think of God as our investor. He's investing into our lives. And when he invests, we give him back that first 10% before we do anything else. And I really think too, again, we come down to that personal relationship with God. To me, tithing, when I think about, okay, do I really know and love and trust God? Let me trust him with what's the most important thing to this society.
Ooh, that's good.
Right? Like, he's the most important thing to me. So if he is the most important thing to me, I can trust him with the thing that's most important in our society, that our society views as the most important thing.
Well, it's like, go look where your money's going. Like, whenever I get paid by whatever, and instantly, even before it hits my bank account, I'm like, okay, I have 3 places I go put it. I have two churches and then a friend's organization that's really up and coming, just to really support his homeless ministry, church ministry, all of that. And I've seen where that money is going and how it's blessing other people, because it's so much bigger than you. It's like, an extra $50 or even $500, somebody's going to benefit from that. An extra meal or just an extra person to love on or what have you. It's like, it's more than just your money. Money is just a tool. And so I love being able to give it and being like, you do whatever you want with it because I trust you, but I've already seen the impact that you have. And I'm glad that I can be a part of that, because, this is what God's blessed me with. And so many people just get so frugal and they're like, oh, I don't have enough to tithe. And I'm just, even when I didn't have money, it's like, I would still be like, okay, this is what I can give. Here you go. And the longer I've tithed, the more they say it, unless you really do it, you won't understand. But the more you tithe, like, the more blessings you get, because God's seeing you being obedient with your finances. And most people are like, oh, I'm not going to see that. You may not see it overnight, but it will come into fruition when you're doing what he's calling you to do. And it's so fun watching that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like that extra $500, for example, $5,000 or something, that helped so-and-so get back on their feet to do da-da-da-da. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. I'm glad that I can be a part of that. I don't want any recognition. I just want them to, just know that they're loved and they have everything that they need or whatever. But a lot of people want that recognition too. And it's like, no, humble yourself, because it wasn't even yours to begin with.
Right. And, on that vein of God blessing you, that's that Malachi 3:10 verse. I've seen it happen in my life a million times, that, he opens the floodgates of heaven for you and pours down so much blessing there isn't even room enough to store. But the second part of that is that he also rebukes the devourer for your sake, so that the enemy doesn't come and eat up the fruit of your ground. And I've seen that happen both in money and in other kinds of blessings. And then when I used to lend a lot of money, to people who needed it in the church. And one of the things I would do is first, obviously, come up with a budget. And in that budget, would have tithing and paying me back. And tithing came before paying me back. But they would often come to me, about a month or so later as they're starting to pay me back. And they would say, what's interesting is that since I started tithing, I have more money at the end of the month and nothing's changed. And before I was always short at the end of the month. And almost always, especially someone who'd never tithed before, they would give up the habit within the year, almost always. And they would come to me and say, I stopped tithing. I just, got out of the habit. And I'm in that same position again, where I don't have enough money at the end of the month and nothing's changed as far as bills and all that stuff. That I don't have enough at the end of the month again. And I'm not even giving that 10% anymore. And so when they gave the 10%, they had extra at the end. When they didn't, they still didn't have the extra. And so it just really shows that whether it was through, someone bought their dinner, or whatever, God provided in these miraculous ways to bless them, both financially and, emotionally and spiritually. And they would see that while they was tithing. So it's been such a blessing for me, not only to see it in my own life, but the people who I've lent money and I said, hey, the condition of me giving you this is that you tithe, to see it in so many people's lives where they see the very distinct difference and then they ultimately give up the habit, which I've done plenty of times in my life as well, especially when I was younger. And then they see where they're in lack, right?
Wow, that's so powerful. That's so cool. Because there's all these little things that you just never know. Oh, that was nice. Oh, that's cool. That's great. But it's so powerful. It's like I love that just illustration, and that it's a real story too. And so good for you to be like, hey, I want to give this to you, but this is my requirement. What a great requirement, because you're kind of pushing them to do the right thing, and then they're seeing the fruits of that, and you're just like, if they would have never had that push, they would have never really known. So good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then they get to experience it for themselves and know that, God's, and this is the one place in the Bible, we see the Bible say, don't test me, but in Malachi, he says, test me now in this, that I won't open the floodgates of heaven and pour down more blessing than you could even store. And, I've seen that time and time again. And it's interesting because in the last season that was super financially, and I just had like all this, and it's great because it's really I'm trying not to make it my thinking that that's what's keeping me sustained in this season, like, oh, God gave me all this money so I could just keep going, but in this season, the blessings are very much like that Proverb 31 woman, and they're more like wisdom and humility and that not talking too much. I had a very similar situation with one of my mentors where he didn't say it to me, but I realized when I would leave, because I was always traveling around the world at the time. And I come back and I say, oh, and I went here and we did this and we ate chocolate in Switzerland. I would just like be so excited to share all these adventures I had been on. And then I'd realize after the conversation, I wish I would have asked further into that, what he said. And I wish I would have asked him more about this, and then I'd be off around the world again, so I wouldn't get to ask. And I mentioned this to him, and he actually turned me on to Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And, I would kind of go in before and rehearse a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go in back before COVID, give him a hug, get our coffee, sit down. And when he says something profound, I'm going to wait a second rather than going, yeah, that's so great. Like you said, kind of that nervous but excited talk. I'm going to absorb that. Think about, do I want to ask a question on that? Because this is my opportunity to really dig deeper into what that person said. And it's something I still, as people who are entertainers and talkers, we are really good. I know people who are a bit shy love being around me because they're like, you just carry the conversation. I don't have to think about what to say, right? But for those who want to also pitch in, like being able to ask better questions and really care. And, for those of us who are kind of that more entertainer side, that's something that we have to learn and hone, right?
Yeah, that's good. That's so good. Like that taking a second, like you said, Okay, think about it, because yeah, that time is precious and they could be wherever doing whatever, and they're spending it with you. And so it's so good, because sometimes we just want to hear ourselves talk, or hear, listen, this is what I did, check it out, check it out, check it out. But always being a student, always there to learn, is the best way to be. It doesn't matter how much money you make, how much success you have, you can always learn from somebody. So I love the fact that you shifted that and you caught that, because there's just a lot of chatter out there, but there's a lot more wisdom that's not being said, because it's not being given the space, because people are just too busy talking about themselves. So again, experience for me too. I've done the same thing.
Yeah, it's a continual thing. I definitely still do it from time to time, especially actually if I'm a little nervous. I think I just keep, let me tell you all about the exciting things I've done,
Yeah.
And so it's definitely that practice of grounding yourself, being authentic, knowing that there's no reason to have nerves. We're all humans created by God. There's humbly, that you're also valuable. And so I want to talk a little bit in these last couple minutes, just a little bit more about the Dream Factory. That is it thedreamfactory.com where people can find that?
Dreamfactoryco.com. And so, yeah, dreamfactoryco.com. And basically what we do is we help coaches and consultants. We have that one-stop shop for anything that you need: design, videography, copywriting, lead generation services.
I went on your website, is so all-inclusive. I mean, I think about, like I said, I was designing that app and things, and I'm going to all these different people, but you really have this all under one roof.
Yeah, for the exact reason of what you just mentioned, is like, then you got like this company over here has to integrate with this company and this company and that company, and does it all flow? So our CEO just he saw that need a long time ago, and he created this one-stop shop where everybody's kind of in their zone of genius. So we have a hefty team of like almost 20 people that are working together behind the scenes to really be able to do this for people. That's where we're best at, is people really understanding, okay, I'm good at these couple things, have the team do the marketing and branding, because most people don't get into their business to become a professional marketer.
Right.
And I love it, because when you do that and you know what you're good at and you hire out the rest, it gives you that freedom to be able to love what you do, have that open creativity, and not be so bogged down by certain things that was never your gifting. And so we've been able to help lots of coaches, dozens of coaches in the last 7 years, have 5-figure launches within their first 30 days of working with our team.
Wow.
And that to me says, okay, look, you took that you knew what you had is valuable. You brought on a team to do what they needed to do. You focused on certain, what you were best at, and boom, look what happened. And so we see these kids at Christmas morning kind of smiles, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it would be me. I've heard you've done it for other people, and I've seen that in testimonials, but me, this is what's awesome, because we know there's a lot of people out there with a lot of value, and we want to be able to put them in a position where the right people can find them and work with them, because the digital age is obviously, everybody's online right now, absolutely everybody, and it's so noisy too. So being able to really pierce through that noise to show people that are actually out there looking for you, hey, here I am, this is what I can do to support you. And I love it, because I love being able to get to know people, the person behind the skill set type of thing. And Dream Factory Co is going to be the best way for you to learn more about that. And then, even set up a call to be able to learn what we have going on, or you can even reach out to me on social media, Facebook or Instagram, things like that. And we can set up that call, because I would love to get to know people that are listening to this show personally, because I'm very much a people person. I'm like, I want to get to know you, your business. Okay, that's great. That's awesome. But what about you? What got you into what you're doing? And people are like, okay, they want to talk about themselves, and you may be the only person that day or that month that ever asked, because so many people are in a hurry. And I like to take that time to really dive in, because we really do care as a team. Under promise, over deliver, and that's why our results have been proven time and time again. But it's really just being of service at the end of the day. Being of service to somebody and know them, hey, you're going to bury your soul with us and tell us what you want to do, and we're going to give you the tools to facilitate that, to make that sustainable and be able to, create a big impact and income for yourself.
Yeah. And, I'd say there's nothing more demoralizing than knowing you have this incredible gift and no one who sees that value, feeling like you're constantly throwing your pearls to swine, and no one's, realizing, hey, these are pearls, these are valuable. And so that's something that you're helping people get in front of the people who are, can look at a pearl, know the value, and make that exchange, and both parties are winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we Love to empower people in their gifting. Really, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And just like, here's what you need to do. We're going to educate you, make sure you're really clear on what it looks like, and then lead you through it. And that's where people are like, that's what's lacking in the space that we're in, is that clarity, education, and leadership. And so we really thrive in that area because people are, and it can be kind of nerve wracking. And so finding a team that you can trust to be able to get you there means everything. So we've had a bunch of people, unfortunately, come to us where they've been burned tens of thousands of dollars, even some multiple six figures, and they're still in it, but they're a little reluctant. So it's just like, God's all up in our business. He really guides all of us on the team. And we just love being able to show people, here's what's possible, so you can make that legacy impact.
Yeah, of course. And there are so many people out there who have, been burned before. They've tried to hire this professional or that professional. They haven't got the results. And so to know that, there's people out there really pursuing the kingdom, really praying into the work they're doing for you. I mean, that's super key. So where can people find you on your social medias?
Yeah, so probably the easiest is going to be on Instagram, I bet. So it's going to be Molly, MOLLY _ Trotter, TROTTER. And then from there, there's links to pretty much all my other profiles. I mean, you can, same profile picture on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, under Molly Trotter. Actually, Facebook is Molly Trotter Gomez now, since I recently got married. So you can look that up and you can probably find it. Yeah, I'd love to be able to connect with anybody from your show and just be able to get to know them. And thank you so much for having me on, Reina. This has been amazing. Such a great and real conversation.
It's been a pleasure for me too, Molly. And I really encourage you all out there, definitely check out the Dream Factory Co. Is it?
DreamFactoryCo.com.
Check out dreamfactoryco.com. We'll see if we can get that under here. And check out Molly Trotter on her Instagram or Facebook. There's some really beautiful pictures on there of their wedding, and you can follow on Facebook the Monday days talking about being a couple and being godly in that. And thank you all for watching. We appreciate, we see the numbers going up every week, and we know that you're out there supporting us. It's such a blessing. Until I see you again, may the Lord bless and keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, and nourish your soul.